Yo, this is Deadman with your buzz for March 17th, 2009. Republican Senator from Iowa, Chuck Grassley, went on the radio yesterday and suggested that perhaps AIG executives should follow in the footsteps of many of their Japanese peers and, quote, either resign or go commit suicide. Alright, look, it's easy to dismiss what Grassley had to say as unhelpful, disgusting, disturbing, whatever. But I do think somewhere in there he actually has a point. Look, so far, we have been following the Japanese blueprint in terms of responding to their own economic crisis to a T. I mean, zero interest rate policy, highly stimulative on a monetary level, and when that didn't work, beginning to initiate large amounts of fiscal stimulus, and doing all of this without addressing the core crux of our problem, and that is the rot that is still within our financial system. And through government bailouts and taxpayer money, allowing these institutions to continue to operate, even though they are, for all intents and purposes, insolvent because of all the obligations they owe, but allowing them to operate as quote-unquote zombie banks. Whereas perhaps allowing the free market to do its dirty work and its destructive magic could be tougher in the short run, could lead to more pain in the short run, but could also perhaps get us out of this downturn quicker and not have us be mired like the Japanese are 10 years later in a continued economic downturn with no end in sight. The only thing that we haven't done that the Japanese did in terms of responding to our economic crisis is perhaps the one thing that could help, and that is begin to show a little bit of shame and display a little bit of personal responsibility that is part of the Japanese culture. I'm obviously not suggesting going the suicide route. That's taking it to an unnecessary extreme. In Japan, the bestseller in the 1990s was the Complete Suicide Manual. They were seeing 30,000 people every year commit suicide, most of them because of financial situations, and a lot of them executives who felt ashamed because of the financial destruction they had wrought. So while I'm not suggesting we go to that extreme, perhaps it would be helpful if American business leaders and politicians, instead of making excuses, instead of passing the buck and blaming others, began to feel and demonstrate some shame on their own part and some personal responsibility. I am seeing a lot of anger on the part of the masses when it comes to this AIG stuff. I feel it myself. But a lot of the people who are commenting on these stories feel it to a lot larger extent. And some of the things they're talking about, burning the houses of AIG executives, starting a revolution, these are things that are not helpful. If we're going to get out of this mess, it's not going to be by pitting American versus American, the haves versus the have-nots. We are in this together. And that is the only way that we're going to move forward as a country. But perhaps one more necessary step in terms of that healing process and setting the stage for an eventual recovery will be for executives to start feeling and demonstrating some really genuine shame. I know I'd like to see it. That's today's buzz.